Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, this is me, Jonathan Alexander, and I'm here to host my show, Life, Laughter, Happiness. I saw someone come in from the California number. Is that you, Camille?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so Camille James Harmon is here. My co-host, Kelly, the lady who brings in the magic every time, is here. I wanted the two of you to meet. I was curious because usually when I add people on Facebook, I do it because they have a lot of commonalities, it seems. And I noticed that one of our common interests, it seems, was UFOs.
Yeah.
You now have sort of a different. What led to you? What led to your current belief in UFOs?
Oh, goodness gracious. It's such a long story. I've kind of dropped out of the UFO research world. I still put my toe in once in a while, go to different lectures and things. But I had some experiences with paranormal attacks, let's call it that, in the mid-'90s when I moved to Los Angeles. And they kind of rocked my world and set me on this path of, the quest. Like, what the hell was that? And why me? And what's going on? And, I became very obsessed with the subject. And because I was living in L.A., it was a great place to research it because all the speakers would come here and talk at MUFON, and I started going to MUFON meetings. I had a sighting. All this stuff was happening at once. This was like the late 1995 time frame. And so I went with it, but it was very disruptive to my life because it kind of took over, And I was down that rabbit hole, I call it, for like 17 years, researching, traveling. I ended up writing for UFO Magazine between 2000 and 2004. And I went to England. I walked in the crop circles in 1998. I went to Roswell for the 50th anniversary in 1997. So I was really, really into it, and I was meeting all of the big names in the field. I met Dr. John Mack. I met Whitley Strieber. I met, all of the top names in the field in the mid to late 90s. And it was fascinating, and it was a great adventure for a while. But then it changed for me.
What changed?
Well, it was around the year 2012. Do you remember when all the hysteria was going on about the Mayan calendar?
Yes.
And everybody thought the world was going to end and all that stuff was going on for the winter solstice of 2012. Well, it's interesting because my husband, Jeff Harmon, is an astrologer. He does a lot of radio, and he was saying, I'm looking at this 2012 thing, and I don't see anything astrologically. It's like nothing. I don't know why everyone is freaking out. And sure enough, nothing happened. And it was around that time I was writing a book about my experiences, because all my friends would hear my story and they'd say, you should write all this down and write a book like other abductees, write a book. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I've been researching it forever, and I still don't understand what it was, and I still haven't made up my mind. And they said, just write the book anyway. And I was like, okay. So I was writing the book, and I got to the end. And, the end of my book was like, well, that was interesting, but I still don't know what it was. It could be this, could be this, could be this. And I was kind of listing all of the scenarios that I had come up with over the years. And I got so angry, and I just kind of put out this prayer. And I would say at the time I made this prayer, it was very New Age, okay? And I just kind of put out this prayer, and I was like, okay, God, I'm so over this. And I do want to finish this book, but I don't want to lead anyone astray. So please somehow show me what the hell these creatures were and what happened to me, and just let me move on with my life so I can put an end on my book, feel good about it, and not lead anyone into an erroneous conclusion. So I made that prayer, and then right after that came my way. First of all, I was just walking through the bookstore. It was like a Barnes & Noble, a big normal bookstore. And I saw this book that I hadn't seen before, and it was called Gray Aliens and the Harvesting of Human Souls. Or, no, Gray Aliens and the Harvesting of Souls. That was the name. And I was like, what? And I bought it and I read it, and it was really interesting. And it was this guy, I don't have the author right in front of me right now, but he was saying that the gray aliens are trying to grab people and steal their souls. And he was talking a lot about how after we die, we turn into this light energy. And he kept using the reference of the Shroud of Turin and how the image of Jesus appeared on this cloth, and they couldn't figure out how it was done. It was radio. It was like imprinted on the cloth from a burst of light. They said it wasn't paint, and it wasn't anything like that. It was like some very interesting effect on the cloth. And I don't know, the more I was reading about that, I thought that was very interesting. And it kind of led me to some other books that I had read that were put out by Christians, arguing basically that the alien abduction scenario is a demonic attack. And I'd never taken that seriously before. And when I started reading their books, I started to give it some thought and look at what they were saying and look at testimonials of people who had stopped the so-called aliens, by calling on Jesus, and people that had all these stories to tell that I was never hearing these stories at UFO conferences. And I thought they were very important and very interesting perspectives. So I basically intellectually gave over to that idea. And then I was kind of like, okay, God, seriously? Is this your answer? Are aliens demons? Seriously? Seriously? Is it that simple? And I had this born again experience, for lack of a better explanation. And I had so many things happen to me to change my perspective. It was very emotional and very powerful, and I was crying and feeling like I had, wasted 17 years of my life. And I just wanted, I didn't, when I was New Age, it was I wanted to have powers, right? You want to be psychic, you want to be this, you want to be able to do this and that. And I just got this feeling, it was oh my God, it was I am the creature and you are the creator, and I do not have to understand the whole freaking universe. I just have to be obedient and kind and helpful. And it was really simple.
Let me ask
and that's
you this.
really what changed.
You don't believe that aliens exist at all?
I'm not saying they don't exist. I'm saying I question whether they're beings from other worlds. I'm not saying the experience is not real. I think the experience is very real. But I think that it is partially a mind screw by these demonic creatures that are able to shape-shift and present themselves into ways that are very seductive to humans. And they can change their shape, and they can match their costume and set for a modern science fiction era.
Well, the reason I have a question to ask you. I just wanted to, because I was reading your description before the show, and I thought about what you said. I have a question though. Now, I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but this is something that I've wondered about. I've never seen an alien before in my life. I've never seen anything that resembles an alien. I've never seen anything that resembles an alien landing or I've never seen anything that really looks like that or experiences that. And if you're saying that aliens are using the old thinking use the technological age and the thinking that the aliens are the creators and their saviors. I haven't really heard it all that much. What I've heard is that it's not so much that they're creators and they're saviors. I mean, I don't really hear.
There are a lot of people who believe that they're creators and saviors. I think they're deceivers. I think they're here to pull people away from God and make people think that the alien species is going to come save them from themselves.
Yeah, but my question is that if what you're saying is true, I think it would be happening a lot more often, and I've never experienced anything like that. I mean, I've never had an alien come to me and say, you would think that would be the first thing that they would go would be have everyone see one and not certain people. What does it make sense?
Okay, well, I never saw one either except under hypnosis, which is a whole other interesting, conversation, like how trustworthy is hypnosis. So, I mean, I should go into my story a little more in detail as far as the mechanics of what happened to me and why I think what I think.
Okay.
So, I mean, I did see a UFO in the sky in Los Angeles around the time this all happened to me. It was black. It was very high up. It was in broad daylight with my boyfriend while we were walking the dog, and it was stationary, and it had a glow around it, and it disappeared. And I went home. I left him with the dog, and I ran home, and I reported it to MUFON, and they took my report. So that was in December of 1995. Around that time, I was having these sleep paralysis attacks in the night. But not only was I having sleep paralysis and waking up frozen and I couldn't move, at one point I heard a voice call my name in my left, like it seemed like my left ear, and it sounded really mechanical. And I was shown an image of a gun pointing at me. And it was very startling because I had never had any kind of auditory hallucination or visual hallucination before. And it was like, what the hell? It was like, is that a dream? But I was like awake when it happened and I couldn't move, and it was horrible. And it was when I started going to MUFON meetings. At the time this was happening, just so you know, there was some physical weirdness happening. Beyond that, I also had no menstrual cycle for 3 months, and I was on the pill at the time. And I went to this MUFON meeting, and I heard this woman talking about her abductions, and she had a book, and I was looking at the back of her book, and it was Kim Carlsberg, if you know who that is. And she had a checklist at the back of her book. Her book was called Beyond My Wildest Dreams. And it was like an abduction checklist. And it was like, have you ever had this experience, or do you ever feel this way, or did you have the history of this as a child, and all of these things. And I was like, holy cow. Like, I have 85% of things on this checklist, and I had been having these attacks in the night, and I just thought, I started shaking. I was like, I think I'm one of these people. And I was introduced to Barbara Lamb, who's a therapist who does regressions for abductees. And I did a regression with her, and it all came out like this horrible alien abduction scenario. We targeted that night when I had the sleep paralysis and heard the little thing say my name in my ear. And, I had this very standard abduction memory on the table. It was terrifying. I was screaming. My teeth were chattering. It was like the most terror I've ever known in my life, this hypnosis session. And it seemed very real, And then it happened a couple of more times the next year, and I also had more hypnosis sessions with other people and with her. I had like 4 or 5 hypnosis sessions total with different people. And I got these alien abduction scenarios, and they were very real and very emotional. And the final one that I had with Barbara was because I found this object in my tooth. My dentist found it. And he was trying to drill it out, and he said it's really hard and it's spherical, and it wasn't there before when I worked on the same tooth. And I did a hypnosis session with Barbara, and we targeted this what the hell is in my tooth? That was the question. And I got like a military abduction scenario with humans and black helicopters and underground base and all this. And it was very strange, very emotional. Not as emotional as the alien memory, though, I will say that. I felt more like hazed over and drugged in this session. When I had the alien memories, if that's what they were, it was like super heightened awareness and extreme alertness and terror. And when I had this other memory, it was more like hazy and drugged. So I don't know if any of these memories were real, if they were influenced by stuff I read, but they matched things I had in my body. So that's what that kept me interested. And I don't know what to make of that. And I'm not saying people aren't having experiences where they're being worked on by creatures and there's physical evidence. I'm not denying that for people that have had that experience. I'm just interpreting it all differently,
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that does make sense. I mean, that had to be terrifying. And I've heard from people who have apparently had military abductions or been on UFOs and been experimented on, and they don't have very good recollections of it sometimes, but through hypnosis. And like you said, you had like 4 or 5 different sessions with different people, so if it wasn't real, then I would think that they wouldn't all be able to come to the same conclusion with you.
Well, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about hypnosis. I think what happens in hypnosis is that you open yourself up to a level of, I don't know, consciousness or awareness or whatever, where you're able to be, I hate to sound so negative, but I think that there are other dimensional creatures, entities, whatever you want to call them, demons, whatever, spirits, that can encounter you in this state of hypnosis. And I think that hypnosis, now that I'm a Christian, actually a Catholic, I would say it's not a very safe undertaking for spiritual reasons. That's my opinion on it. There's no prayer at the beginning of hypnosis that I will be protected in the name of Jesus or anything like that. I didn't do that in my hypnosis session. I don't trust what comes out of hypnosis. I'm not saying it's all false. I have major trust issues, okay? So I'll be the first to admit that. But, I was in the UFO world for 17 years, and I went to channelers, and I went to psychics, and I went to everybody under the sun and said, what the hell happened to me? Who were these creatures? And I would describe them. And I would get like 10 different answers. And it's like, oh, if you're also wise and psychic, then how come you're saying it's the so-and-so creatures and they're lovely and they're helpful? And then another psychic would say, oh, those are bad guys. It's like a bunch of mishmash. It's like nothing all matches up. And these beings lie to people. And I don't trust them at all. And I really am here to talk on your show to caution people against worshiping freaking aliens, against trusting freaking aliens. And I'm just telling you, it is a rabbit hole and it is a trap. That's how I feel about it.
That would make sense, though, if they were, if they're demons. I don't know if you have read the book Pigs in the Parlor, The Practical Guide to Deliverance, but I'm partway through it. And apparently there's a lot of open doors that demons can come in through. They don't mention hypnosis, at least not as far as I've read into the book yet, but hypnosis, from what I can understand, can sometimes put subconscious things into the person's mind, help them to be more open to suggestion. And I wonder if, the people doing the hypnosis, being that they are doing it to try to find, UFO and alien type things, might, do a disservice to someone who isn't sure if they've had it or not, because maybe they're just pointed in that direction and suggesting, something that may or may not have, happened. But, if it's demonic,
it's very
then
mysterious.
Maybe they have something too.
I'll tell you what, the whole UFO thing started for me. I was living in New Orleans. I was an actress, and my boyfriend and I were getting ready to move to L.A. This was in 95, the summer of 95. And I was walking through the bookstore, and Whitley Strieber's book, I think it's called, let me go out in the living room. I was in one room because my family was making noise, but now they left, so I can go out and look at my books. Okay, so I was reading, I get his books, Breakthrough. That's the name of the book. Okay, Breakthrough. It's silver and blue, and it was on the shelf in hardcover in 1995 at this bookstore. And the only reason it jumped out at me was a stupid alien face on the cover, right? And I remember seeing the movie Communion because I love Christopher Walken, and they made a movie out of Communion. And I was like, oh, this guy Whitley Strieber is still writing about alien abduction. I wonder what he thinks now. And I was just curious. I had no interest in UFOs. I saw that book, and I felt compelled to buy it. And I read that book, and I was blown away. I was like, wow, this is serious, and he went into some government stuff and all this. It's a good book. And it was right after I read that book and we moved to LA like a month later that all this stuff happened to me. So I think reading that book opened some kind of a door. I'm the first person to say, look, I am a sinner. I mean, I have tons of sin in my background. I am not, some holy person that, there's no reason for demonic attack to happen to. So there's that going on too. And although having studied demonic attack extensively now, I will say that there are holy people who get demonically attacked. So it's a very mysterious phenomenon. It doesn't only happen to bad people. It happens to good people. It happens to children. It happens to all kinds of people. And we don't know the mysteries of why and who gets picked and targeted. And we don't know why some people have a demonic attack that's very obviously demonic, and some people have alien abduction scenarios which may not be, quote unquote, obviously demonic. It's very mysterious.
I was going to say something like, I've heard a lot of people, they talk about, there's this conspiracy, hiding UFOs and all this stuff. This is my problem with it. I think a lot of people misunderstand what it actually means when they say that the government lies. Our government doesn't really lie. It's the people in the government that lie. For instance, if you say, well, let me give you an example of what I mean. Let's say that Donald Trump says something and it's not true. The governor of Nebraska isn't saying that. It's Donald Trump that's saying it. So what I'm trying to say is this is why they say that people don't believe in the UFO conspiracies, because everybody would have to lie at the same time, and that's generally not how it works. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Now, another idea, here, speaking of the government and the scenario going on there, I actually recommend a book by Nick Redfern, who you guys may know. He's written tons of books on UFOs and cryptozoology and all kinds of things, not just UFOs. But he has a really great book called Final Events and the Secret Government and the Secret Government Group on Demonic UFOs and the Afterlife. That's the subtitle. It's called Final Events, Nick Redfern. This book blew my mind. I'm telling you. He's a journalist and he's an author. And he interviewed people that were involved with a government project called the Collins Elite. And they were formed to study the link between, this is like the early 50s. They were formed to study the link between UFO sightings in the air, occult activity on the ground. And guess what? Everywhere they went and there were UFO sightings, they found occult activity on the ground. And it goes into length about Jack Parsons and JPL and all the black magic they were doing. The whole space program has an occult background of lots of Masons and Nazi scientists and occultists from Pasadena. So you've got like all that going on. But what these people told him in the book was that the government made deals with these beings. Okay? That's one of the things we hear, right? But they thought they were making deals with aliens, right? But then they found out they had actually made deals with demons and didn't know that. They were tricked, okay? And once they found out they were demons and not aliens, they were like, oh, no, we'll never be able to tell the public this, so we're going to have to put out a cover story that it's aliens, because the truth is much worse. So, I mean, it's just a whole different take on things. I highly recommend that book.
I mean, because I heard laughter when I told you about the government lying. I just don't. I guess my thing is that for our government to lie, if you were talking about another government, like say the Russian government, that'd be different. But with our government, one person lying is not the same as the entire government lying. So how could they cover that up?
Well, because they threaten people, right, with top secret clearance, that they can't say certain things. Or they'll hurt their family or whatever. They'll lose their pension. My uncle is a retired rocket scientist for NASA in Huntsville, Alabama. He worked under Wernher von Braun. He's a mechanical engineer. And I asked him about all this. I said, help. I'm your niece, and I went through this. What's going on? And he said, I don't know anything. He says, if it's true, then it's NSA, and they're never going to tell you, and you need to just move on. And so I'm not holding out for disclosure. See, that's the thing, too. Like, people are like, oh, we need disclosure. It's like, do you think you're really going to get the truth? Seriously?
No.
You know, in some kind of official capacity? They're gonna never give us the full truth. You know, I don't think. They're just going to keep putting out movies and TV shows. I noticed we have Project Blue Book out now on television, and we have a reboot of the Roswell show. You know, that's coming out on television, and we've got, you know, Ancient Aliens running all day long. It's like that's what we're going to get. We're not going to get anything better than that, I don't think. That's just me being a pessimist.
I think also another reason, a reason why scientists reject the concept of aliens has to do with the theory of evolution, meaning that a person from another planet were to evolve, they probably wouldn't evolve as necessarily aliens. You know, you understand what I'm saying? I think that. I think what it is that I think that as far as aliens, they always seem to. I don't know. I mean, I think that that I wouldn't know an alien if I saw one because I've never seen an alien. But there's a lot of stereotypes associated with aliens. They always seem to visit two guys in a fishing boat, you know. But they never go to visit the guy in the house.
I don't know. I mean, I've read all kinds of accounts, and they don't always visit two guys in a fishing boat. And they, you know, the way it happened to me, whatever they were, was through my bedroom in Los Angeles. There was no spaceship. There was no. I wasn't in my car. I wasn't. You know, I was like in my bed asleep, and I got lifted through the ceiling in one memory, and in another memory, I got taken out the window. And now I don't know what to make of those memories. I mean, really, I don't. But that's how it happened to me. And a lot of people that I've read about, it's very much, you know, happening to them in their bed when they're asleep. And it's very interesting because there is a high preponderance of these creatures visiting people at night at 3 a.m. And I found that very interesting. I was at like a contactee support group thing at a conference one year, and it said, you know, I was awakened at 4 a.m. sharp. Like literally, I sat up in bed and my digital clock said 4:00 3 nights in a row, and I was like, what the heck? And then the third night, I looked down on my leg, and I had this triangle on my leg, like a bleeding pinprick triangular wound on my leg. And they said, oh, what time of year was that? And I said, it was in July. And they said, oh, well, they don't do daylight savings. It was really 3 a.m. And I was like, holy cow. And what's interesting in Catholicism is 3 a.m. is known as the devil's hour, and it's the opposite of the 3 p.m. time frame when Christ allegedly expired on the cross. So the devil does everything backwards. So the devil appears to people at 3 a.m. I also learned that Mother Teresa used to get her nuns up out of bed to pray at 3 a.m. So it's like a big thing in, you know, Catholic history, which I found very interesting, since it's matching when most people have their abduction experiences.
No, I'm going to say something else that I've heard. I've heard a common misconception is that the upside down cross is a sign of the devil. I've heard that it's actually I think it's a symbol
sign of
St.
Peter. It's a symbol of St. Peter because he was crucified upside down. He requested, St. Peter was crucified. He was the first pope, right? And he said, please don't crucify me as you did Jesus. I want to be different than Jesus, not to steal symbology from Jesus. So could you crucify me upside down? And they said, fine. And they crucified him upside down. And so you'll see in Catholic imagery sometimes the inverted cross associated with the Pope because that is a symbol of St. Peter. So, I mean, I don't know if it has other occult ritual purposes, but, you know, that's the original.
Why would someone want to be, is it easier to be crucified upside down than it is right side up? Or?
I have no idea. He just didn't want to, he just thought that the image of Jesus on the cross, he didn't want to, like, duplicate that image. He wanted that to be its own image, and so he wanted his death to be something different. Just to not steal attention from the image. He wanted it different. That's all I know. I mean, there's probably a better explanation of that, but I don't have it. But that's where it comes from.
Do you have any reason going?
Oh, I was just wondering, do you believe that the aliens, which could be demons, walk among us and we don't realize it? Like, they might be our next door neighbor or somebody that we see at the mall or whatever.
I don't know what to make of that. People have said things like that, and I just really have no opinion on that. I mean, anything is possible. I really don't. I mean, just because I have strong, religious views about it all, I don't want to throw everything out the window. You know what I'm saying? I still honor. I honor the idea that people see people that they think fulfill that description, and that I don't know what those people are. I don't associate them with beings from another planet.
I think because I want to go with something she said. There's a movie called Men in Black, and there are people that allege that those people really exist. That they are out there. They're men in black. They walk around and they have black hats, black glasses, black suits, and they are basically the kind of people that are just, they threaten people. They threaten you if you see an alien or something.
Right.
I mean, have you heard of that?
Of course. And very often in those Men in Black accounts, they are described as not quite human looking. Like they have very strange complexions, or they don't walk quite normally, or they don't speak quite normally, or they don't have the right eyes like a normal human. So even the Men in Black accounts very often have a paranormal flair to them. They don't appear like normal people.
But this goes back to what Kelly was saying about these demons that walk among us and you wouldn't know. I mean, are you implying that it's possible that these Men in Black are demons?
I don't know. Anything's possible. I'll tell you this. I mean, biblically, there's nothing in the Bible that says, oh, by the way, at the end times, the Pleiadians are going to come and save you and whisk you off to another planet. And, there's nothing about aliens. There's demonic fights, in the sky, and there are things that have to do with signs and wonders, and there are things that have to do with, things getting really ugly, and deception, the great deception, and there are all these symbols. We have to make sense of all that. One of the titles for the devil in the Bible, interestingly enough, in Ephesians 2, chapter 2, is Prince of the Air. And it just makes you wonder, why would that be a description of the devil? There are all these
I've
titles
heard Morning
of Christ,
Star.
right?
That's
and
what I've heard. I've heard Morning Star.
Yeah, Morning Star. And so it makes you think of these things in the sky, right? But you conversely have positive images of things in the sky that are biblical too. Like you have, that Jesus is supposed to return in the sky, in the clouds, right? So it's very confusing, obviously, but I just don't trust. When I was in that world for so long, I found that the people in it, and I was one of them, were very narrow-minded. I don't mean narrow-minded. They were very open-minded, to be honest. But I mean they were very narrow-focused on this phenomenon to the exclusion of their ability to function in the outside world very well. Does that make sense?
I guess.
It takes over your life. And it afflicts other areas of your life. Do you see what I'm saying? As soon as I had that born-again experience and I walked away, I was able to focus on acting again. I was able to focus on business. I was able to focus on raising my kid. I was able to focus on so many things that had been put on the back burner when I was obsessed with aliens. And it was such a relief. No. And plus, I had people praying over me a long time ago when all this started happening in the mid-'90s, and it never happened again. I haven't had this problem with these beings since 1997, and I don't go looking for them in the desert. I mean, I used to do that. I used to go out and, like camp out and people and like say, okay, aliens, come and show us that you're here. And, I went through these periods where I thought the aliens were good, where I thought the aliens were bad, where I thought they were all different kinds. And I just, I don't want anything to do with that. Like, if I see a UFO, I'm going to start praying. Like, get the hell away from me. I don't want you flashing around trying to seduce me.
I have a question. I think the one thing that we often associate with the devil more than anything else is the number 666.
Okay.
Have you seen anything in Aliens that have that association?
No. No. The main reason I think that aliens are demons is because people, including myself, have banished them by calling on Jesus. That's one big clue right there. The second clue is they shapeshift, and that to me is very deceptive. The third clue is they take people against their will and terrify them and do physical things to them. Another reason would be they obsess people and make them lose their minds and become obsessed with UFOs and not be able to function in the real world. That's another thing I find. And another thing would be when they talk to people and tell them stuff, it tends to be conflicting information that ends up not to be true. There'll be some truth to it, and then it turns out later not to be true, or it'll have an agenda that's very, we're here to save you. It's nothing about God, nothing about Jesus. Or if you force them to talk about Jesus, they're like, oh, he's just another great teacher. And so there's like, I'm sorry, but any creature that's downplaying Jesus to me is, I don't want to talk to it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm looking through this book that I had mentioned earlier because there are different kinds of common demon groupings, and there are different doors in here to letting them in and seduce. And it's really an interesting book if you ever get a chance. It
Pigs in the Parlor, right?
The Practical
That's a great name.
Yep. Yeah.
By the way, I think we have a caller. Are you open to a caller?
Sure.
Okay. Caller, you're there.
Hello, Camille and Kelly. This is Christopher Fisher from Allentown. I really enjoyed listening to the show, and I have a question. I never really had alien experiences because it seems like I'm really of faith. Why is that when your faith is not corrupted, it's like you're not invited to that at all?
I would say I don't think it's that simple. I do think there are people with strong faith who have battled these creatures. So I don't think it's always that cut and dry and easy, although I think it's certainly helpful to have a strong faith and live according to the 10 Commandments as best you can and not, open doors, as we say. But I still think that there could be reasons beyond our understanding why it happens to us. It could be generational. It could be with the sins of our ancestors. It could be for the glory of God to show deliverance, There's that story of the healing. Jesus healed this guy, and they were like, why did this guy have this affliction? Jesus, was it because of his parents? Was it because of some sin he did? And Jesus said, no, in this case, it was to reveal the glory of God. So we just never know, like the reasoning behind something. Like, why did children have these experiences? And they're innocent, or like that's the mysteries of life. All I can do is say that I have seen some interesting science about like who's getting taken. There do seem to be some high statistical anomalies that are interesting. Like there's a really high number of abductees that have Irish or Cherokee backgrounds, and I have Irish predominant background.
I have both.
Yeah, wow. There's a high number who have a negative blood type, allegedly, which I also have, who have green eyes, which I also have, who have relatives that work in the intelligence or aerospace industry, which I have. So there are all these kind of flags in my, background that make me wonder, like, okay, what does that mean? Does that mean that Irish, whatever, people are more susceptible to this or more desirable by them for some genetic reason? Like, I don't understand. I'm just saying it's interesting. I don't know what it means.
I researched for somebody about the Order of the Black Swan. They're Italian. They're from Naples region. And back in the 1000s, they had a huge abduction issue. And they had me research it. What was interesting, there's only bits and pieces written about it, only like one paragraph in that commune's records.
Huh. Yeah, it's certainly been going on forever. One thing that I found interesting in Catholicism, now let me just say that, my husband is an astrologer, and he's not happy that I went back to the church because he thinks, he doesn't like organized religion, and we argue about all this. But I have found that they, having their long history, and believe me, I know the problems in the church. Oh, my God. There's tons of problems,
I do too.
We have a corrupt pope. We have corrupt priests. We have a whole, there's a lot going on to be upset with. But they do have a 2,000-year history of dealing with the paranormal, and they have protocols for testing spirits and for dealing with people like nuns or saints or whoever who are having mystical experiences. And they have like a testing scenario that they put them through, like to see, okay, what's talking to you? Is it a demon or is it God? And there's they have steps you can take to determine what is the cause of your mystical experience. And actually St. Ignatius of Loyola, who founded the Jesuit order, which now the Jesuits are very corrupt. Don't get me started on that. But the original Jesuit, St. Ignatius Loyola, came up with a very good system called the 14 Rules of Spiritual Discernment. You can Google it. The 14 Rules of Spiritual Discernment. And it was this little checklist. It's like, check these things, And I don't have them in front of me. I should have that in front of me. It's such a great thing to talk about on the radio. But, one of the questions
also in the most recent Miso Romano as well, if you have a copy of that.
Oh, interesting.
2007 version.
Okay. Well, it's very interesting because it asks questions like, is the being talking to you asking you to keep this secret or make it public? And, and then it says, if it's secretive, then it's probably the devil because the devil is secretive and Jesus is public, right? Does it make you feel bad? Does it make you feel depressed? Or does it make you feel joyful? There are all these things that you can go through and test and go, oh, okay. And then you can be at the end of the 14 questions, and maybe you have more of a, an interesting perspective on what it is that's talking to you or giving you advice or interfering with you. And because the devil doesn't come out obvious. It's not always pea soup, right? It's like the devil wants us to be tricked. The devil lies. The devil seduces. The devil gives us 80% truth. And 20% falsity to, make us go down the path with him. It's not always obvious. The devil appears as an angel of light, they say, right? So it's not going to be, some obvious horror movie happening in your life. It could be a seduction that, takes you down into a cult or takes you into, something that's you find out later is like, oh, gosh, I can't believe I went there.
This reminds me of a human cult, but I won't get into this on this show, but Kelly knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Well, I just tell my story. It's like everybody's story is different, and I could be wrong. I'm the first to say I could be totally wrong, but this is my story. This is where I've come, after all these years of this happening.
It's very true what you're saying. I've encountered this, and that checklist has saved my butt several times.
Oh, great. Yeah. Well, I think in the New Age, what I find is people are so into bells and whistles and anything, they just like are too trusting. They're like, oh, my spirit guides or my angels or whatever. It's like, are you sure who's talking to you is who you think it is? And I just don't trust beings talking to me. But again, I have trust issues, so that's my problem. But I think it could be not just a problem, but it could be helpful, because if you're too open-minded, who knows what you'd be following the advice of, So I try to follow the Bible. It's very hard. I'm not good at it. I'm trying. But I think that is the best guidebook. I think I could throw away all the other books on my shelf and just stick with that and be pretty happy, So it's challenging in these times because the world is very anti-Christian. The Hollywood scene is very anti-Christian. All this diversity and inclusiveness and everything is pushing Christianity down into a little hole of, well, you have to welcome this and welcome that and welcome this. And it's like, actually, no, I have to tolerate it. Tolerating something is different from endorsing it, saying it's just as good as, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's, it's a tough time to be Christian.
It is. And I don't think anybody of us are really good adherers to the Bible. The father of lies is always around to trip us.
Yeah, but it's one thing to say, I don't believe in the Bible, it's a bunch of junk, and then another thing to say, I believe in the Bible, I'm just not good at doing all the things it wants me to do, It's like saying there are no rules, which is what a lot of people believe now in the world, versus I know there are rules and I'm breaking them, and I'm trying not to break them, but sometimes I break them. That's two different mindsets totally. And I find a lot of people nowadays in the world, it's just moral relativism. It's just everything is, throw out the rules. Do what you want. That's very Luciferian.
I see that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and a lot of people, it's they want instant gratification and they want to have it now. They want to feel good. They want to have something, even if it's just a temporary feel good, and then it leads them down the wrong path later. They don't care. They don't think they're going to live that long or whatever. They don't think it's going to happen to them, and they don't have the discipline to say no.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with sex, too. I think a lot of people are so controlled by sex that they just, can't get out of that. I grew up in the 80s, right? And it was all, party and sex and everything. It's easy to preach. It's easy to preach when you're old and, married, but really, I think a lot of people are very afflicted.
I was watching the MTV Top 100 music videos of all time, and it's sort of funny is that when you go down the list to 19, 18, 17, 10, it's always the rock video with the sexy girl that runs around. It's sort of like the ZZ Top, Warrant. Here I Go Again from Whitesnake. These bands, they all have these one song that they're known, where there's this girl that runs around, and they're always at the very top of the countdown for some reason,
Yeah. Well, there's always going to be beautiful girls, but it's funny. It's like now we see the fruits of that. We see the fruits of, have all the sex you want, just use birth control and go for it, and have sex with male, female, whatever. Now we see that down the line, 20, 30, whatever, 40 years later, and we've got, like a blowback to that, right? We've got like the Me Too movement, like stop objectifying women, stop, attacking women, which is all great because nobody should be going around raping and attacking women, when that's horrible. I'm not saying the Me Too movement shouldn't exist. I'm just saying that it's like, all this objectification of people. It's not just women, but the objectification of people as sex objects. And then it's like, okay, well, that's not good, because look what happens when you objectify people and use them for sex, Then you don't treat people with any kind of dignity,
Yeah.
That's true. You know what else I've seen, too?
What?
The increase of pedastry and other perverted acts.
I know. And it's tragic. And I think that, we need to recover human dignity.
We had
I don't know.
The Bill Cosby on the other day. It was about it. We had that lady on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a good show. Yeah. Yeah, and to think that there are so many people out there this has happened to, that the flip side of the coin of being so open and sex is everywhere is also that we can actually talk about it if somebody is sexually assaulted, where before it was you hide in shame, you don't tell anyone, and the person goes on to commit it who knows how many times until they get caught by somebody by accident or whatever. But the other not so great thing is the things that you've mentioned, but also like dating sites. It's like people expect to order a person like they would order a pizza and then cast them away if they don't like the topping.
It's not just men to women. It's women objectifying men. It's everyone objectifying everyone. It's very detrimental to maintaining the dignity of humanity and respecting people, And it's I don't know, I've seen things get so much worse over the years. I feel like an old fuddy-duddy complaining about everything, but I'm raising a teenager and I see it with him and his age range and dating and how everything's changed, and I don't know, it just. And then you have so many people not wanting to get married now. They don't want to get married. They just want to use each other sexually and have dogs. They don't want children. They don't want. I mean, it's like this is the downfall of Western civilization.
I'm
people
going to be 49 in a couple
reproduce
weeks.
themselves and have children, and then you get other people that do reproduce themselves and have children, and then they outnumber you, and then Western civilization is gone.
Yeah, or they have like 7 different fathers for their kids and you're not sure who they are, and or the guys that are trying to see how many women they can have kids with, and that's not good either. But there's I found it
the breakdown
weird.
of the family.
Yeah, and in high school, like it used to be, talk about sex was something that you'd kind of snicker about, maybe in a locker room or something, but these girls are talking about it very openly, and they were with so-and-so last night and talking about his bodily attributes, and it was nothing. And it's like, wow. And I'm not trying to pick on females because, equality and all that, but it's just that's the way it is now, and it scares me.
Yeah, it's not good for the future of humanity to objectify each other, I mean, you have to have stable family units, predominant in a society to have any kind of proper upbringing for people. You can't just have chaos, And it's hard. I mean, it's hard.
That's true.
It's hard. It's a very materialistic world.
True.
But, I have the only grandchild in my family. My brother is gay, and my sister decided to have dogs and just, have pets and dress them up. And, I mean, I'm not knocking them. That's their choice, whatever. But I have the only grandchild on my whole side of the family, And what if he dies?
Yeah.
Then our whole family line dies out. You see what I'm saying? It's like you have to think, like, big picture.
Well, I'm the last one with my last name, and so when I get married, if I have kids, they'll have his name possibly. I would think. So, yeah, and I'm female, so I'm the last one. But
so,
my mom really, was
a strange new world.
But...
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm an actress. I like the art of acting. I don't like how political Hollywood has become. It's very much, they're offended by everything, and they, don't get me started. But I do like the craft and the art form, and I think that it should be used to tell good stories. And I try to do good stories, and you don't always know what you're getting into, but it's more important for me to be true to myself, and that's hard enough, and everything else has to be put in perspective.
Yeah, it must be incredibly difficult to be a Christian and go into the field that you're in right now, just for that fact that you don't know who to trust, and is this person really new for what they can get?
Well, it used to not be so bad as it is, in these Trump years, with everyone just, the anger and the hatred, and for anything like traditional or normal. No, really. It's like, if you're normal and traditional, we hate you. It's like, holy cow. And like I said, I don't hate people who are non-traditional, right? I have a gay brother. I have gay cousins. I have tons of gay friends. But I just don't like the bullying that I see going on here, about certain things. And the mockery of Christianity is just rampant, in entertainment.
Yeah.
But it's just trying times. What are you going to do?
Yeah, that's true. It just means there's a good fight ahead, Just kind of, practicing tolerance and trying to be the best person you can, and hopefully lead by example. At least somebody might listen or take observance and say, hey, I can do that.
Camille, have you noticed when you try to post Christmas music? I've done this year. I've actually was accused of being mean.
Oh, my gosh, that's ridiculous.
You know the song, Baby, It's Cold Outside? I got reported for that.
Oh, yeah. Now they're saying that's a song about sexual harassment, trying to force a woman to do something she doesn't want. And, there are other people saying, no, it's not. It's just a stupid, flirty song about being at a Christmas party and trying to pick up a girl. It's like, this is what I'm talking about. It's like all this, everything is overblown. They can't even get a host for the Oscars this year because they can't find someone who's not going to offend other people. Nobody wants the job, Oh, wow. It's like,
yeah, I heard about
everyone's
that.
walking on eggshells. These comedians, don't know what they can joke about anymore because they'll get, blacklisted for making fun of anything. And, I don't know about the Kevin Hart situation. It sounds like what he said in the past was offensive, but it's like, who hasn't said offensive things in the past? And now everything's recorded and documented on social media for all eternity, and it's enough to make you totally paranoid and not want to be on social media at all.
Yeah, it makes me afraid of posting. I don't want to make someone mad. I'm careful.
Yeah, well, it's just gotten out of hand. It's like, I don't know. I don't know where it ends. It just ends with, it's like 1984. It's like you've got the thought police, everywhere.
Oh, yeah,
people of your generation grew up with a different standard than they do now.
Well, I just if it doesn't work out for me in Hollywood, eventually I'll just give up, move away again, and go live somewhere else. For now, I'm having fun, and I'm working, and I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and I'm in a hit movie right now, and we'll see what comes after it. But, it's not the only way forward.
Well, we're about out of time. But it was great having you on, Camille, and it was great having both of you help out with everybody help me out with the show. Thank you for coming on. Now,
thank you.
We'd love
I
to
read somewhere that you are going to be in a new comedy after you get done doing Vice. Is that true?
Yeah, I have a small part in a comedy called Loquisha, which is very funny, and it's I play an anchor, a news anchor.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, thank you for coming on.
You're welcome.
Thank you for letting me call in.
Yeah, thank you for the discussion.
No, thanks for coming on.
You guys take care.